This is the third attempt. That way? I prefer that way. I'm not even German. If this doesn't work, we will try something else. All right. I've just accepted your request, mate. So hopefully we can get you in. What? Yeah, mate. All updated. Everything's as it should be. It's just every time I host these, it just doesn't let me add people. And then anytime Dunk hosts it, it kicks him out after an hour, and we might not see the guest or each other. It's just I don't get it. Um, wow, I look tired. Um, yeah, it's just the curious case of Instagram striking again. I'm accepting it. It's not the dodgy south of the river internet because he's from south of the river too, so that it should work. Right, can't. Here we go. New invite sent to you. Let's try that. Here we
Hey,
go.
there we go. Finally.
Sorry about that, mate.
No
It's
worries.
not the south of the river internet, but it is just rubbish Instagram. How you doing?
Yeah, I can't complain. How's yourself?
Yeah, good fella. Good. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Appreciate you coming on at short notice as well. I put a call out and you graciously answered, so that is always massively appreciated. We do love it when people who follow us and we follow are happy to jump in. So thank you very much. Um, right, let's get down to business. First of all, for our viewers, would you mind explaining who you are, how you got into the Warhammer hobbies, and what you're up to?
Um, yeah, for sure. So I am known on here as Bones Pains Minis, and I got into the hobby when I was about 8 years old. Traditional old school way of doing it. Went around a friend's place. They were sitting painting some miniatures. They gave me one to paint, and then I coerced, bullied, and harassed my parents into taking me into the shop at the next available opportunity, where a disinterested staff member who didn't really care about small children sold me my first £5 box of whatever it was at the time, the little £5 8-man box sets that used to grace the shelves. What a stunning entry point that was, and some paints. And fortunately, my father used to be a big sort of miniature maker and painter in his day, so he was already on board with like what you had to do and how you had to paint and everything. So I started learning at his level, and then eventually got to a point where I sort of surpassed that. And yeah, apart from a very brief period when I was about 14, when I just went, oh, Warhammer for about 6 months, it's been pretty constant, really, as my diminishing bank statement will tell you. Um, Started with Warhammer as you do, and then when I started working for the company and was jamming it down people's throats 24/7, you start playing other games. So I started playing some War Machine and some Malifaux and the various other games that started coming around the early 2000s. Yeah, these days it's mostly Warhammer, but with the occasional bit of Shatterpoints, which I'm absolutely loving at the moment.
Okay.
Um, and it's a great game, great game. It's not for everybody, but it's one of the most sort of like characterful games that I've played in quite a while. Like the box sets are all stunning miniatures. They're a good scale. I think they're like 50 mil. And it's yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun. So that's a whistle stop tour of me.
Cool. So let's go back just to when you started off. You said that your dad was into modelling as well and sort of helped you on your journey because obviously the staff didn't care. What was it that your dad was up to then? Was it like the typical sort of Airfix stuff or?
Well, I say it was a little bit on that. So he worked for a company that some of the older than I am veterans of the hobby might recognise. The name is a company called Hinton Hunt Figures that did they sort of Marcus Hinton was the main guy there, and I think Hunt was his brother or cousin or something or other. And they did a range of old school sort of like Napoleonics and sort of historical miniatures, proper lead and pewter type numbers in about yay
Yeah.
scale, so probably about the 50 mil and above range. And which means it probably explains a lot about my core personality, that I grew up in a bedroom that was once used as a construction room for a lot of melted lead. So there's probably a lot of dust in the air, probably affected me, got into the brain at an early age. I blame that. So he was doing animating and model making for them and painting them in very simple terms, very simple, like, block colors. And but he was very a stickler for the detail. Like if it had an epaulette with 3 stars on it or an epaulette with a thing, it had to have that. Like there was no, it was otherwise it'd be like, well, that's not the right uniform or the right
Yeah.
color. So definitely ADHD is inheritable. Yeah, so we got started. He was very much sort of sort of approaching his retirement years by the time. Well, he was actually retired by the time I got into the hobby, because he was a bit older when he had kids. Yeah, we didn't game ever really, because I was not playing the game at a level when he was sort of wanting to really focus on it, at a level that was, we just put our figures on the table and went, that's the figures, and then put them all away again. And then by the time I got into the game, it bypassed his understanding. He'd probably have understood stuff like Black Powder, where you just have, blocks of troops, and it's a very, very simple system in comparison to, say, Warhammer 40k. I think we were on about 3rd and 4th edition at that point, which obviously and Warhammer Fantasy 5th and 6th, which were just so unwaveringly complicated in comparison to nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have anytime if I wanted pocket money for Warhammer stuff, it was always an easy sell. I would be like, I'll do some chores around the house, and he says, you can earn a £5 or a box of figures, and that never changed, even though the price of figures went up and up and up.
Yeah.
So I quite quickly clocked at an early age that if I was getting into Warhammer, that would be provided in decent quantities. Yeah, we occasionally he would paint something, but eventually he just left that to me. And a highlight of the year every year was going to Salute, where I'd always squeeze a few extra quid out of the my employment salaries and various bits and pieces, and he'd chuck me an extra 20 quid to get something interesting. On the basis we do a sort of a show and tell about the day when I got home, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've got these ones and these ones and these ones, especially anything historical.
Yeah.
So that was always good times, and it's good. I think having I see so many parents with kids nowadays in the hobby, where I'm like you can't put a price on that, and that is, you really enjoy that while it lasts, because it's so rare these days that a parent and child, or even a whole family, will sit around and do the same thing for hours at a time and have a shared vocabulary of hobby and bits and pieces. Yeah, it's nice to see when that happens.
Yeah.
Every now and again you see it.
It's actually interesting you touch on that, because it's something that we've brought up in the past with some of our guests, where they've got young kids, and we've always asked them, would you get your kids into it? What do you think and stuff? So it's nice to actually hear it the other way around, that your dad was a modelist, a hobbyist at some point, and brought you into it, and it's actually really nice to actually hear that. And do you remember, I know you said that it was like a £5 box for a couple of minis when you first picked up. Do you remember what it was, and have you still got any of them?
I haven't still got any of them, because they were all in days I will forever regret. The models of our childhoods, which are now worth absolute. I mean, I could pay my mortgage every month if I had a few of those box sets sitting on the shelf. I got rid of them all at various stages, either traded them up or sold them on for other things, or just binned them a lot of the time. First miniatures were definitely, it was a whatever I could get. I know my brother was massively into like the wood elves and the dark elves for a while, because he did the hobby, and he sort of faded out of it after a year or so, because he didn't really. I think it was like I was getting some, so he'd get some, and then when he got into computer games a bit more, which I eventually did as well, but he was always more like he didn't have the social, and this is something I talk to people about all the time, is like the social aspect the hobby is what keeps you going. No one would do Warhammer alone completely, because you just find another kit. Like you find you print off some crappy 3D miniatures or something, and you just paint those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's because he didn't have the social side of it, whereas I discovered 2 or 3 friends who got into it, and then obviously more friends through working in the company for a while. It was always going to be something that stuck with me. But the first miniatures I got was probably, I want to say, like the £5 Skaven box sets with 8 clan rats, or the I remember having the Tomb King set with the devilishly difficult should never be sold to a child's chariots. That was all bones.
Yeah.
And some of those kits, I mean, people think those tricky kits now. God, sticking that thing together was I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. And then I definitely know that my first codex was Imperial Guard, because I looked at it and I was just like, part of me was just like, why would I buy a book that's 15 quid that has no miniatures in it? And then I read through it and I saw the pictures, and I read the quote about the Tatachan guardsman going out and looking for a pair of Grox hide boots, and he killed 15 Groxes and never found anyone that was wearing one set. And I was just like, that's funny. That's funny. I like that. That's someone gets it. Someone gets the humor. And
Yeah,
that was
I think that's the third edition codex or the fourth edition, wasn't it? I remember that quote. Now you
with the
said it.
£5 supplement. Yeah, with the
Yeah.
£5 supplements. We didn't know we were born, did we? Fucking hell.
And no, it's madness when you look back on it. Like, and even then, you was it the Assassin's Codex for third edition got given away for free in a copy of White Dwarf. Never do that now. Never do that now.
They sort of because the rules are sort of free, but not a book. It's a bit, and they get the cards in it, but no, nothing like a proper full, a full codex that was No, you wouldn't see that these days.
Do you feel proper nostalgic looking back on it? Are you happy with where they are now and how everything is going, or do you sort of sometimes look back and think it was much simpler back then?
I would say a lot from column A, a little from column B. I would think we are spoiled now. We are in a generation where there has never been more quality in the miniatures, and it's never been. I mean, you look at the. I just got the Solar Auxilia kit last week, and before that I got the what are they called? It's one of the Warcry, not Warcry sets, the Neve Black Talon set. And the detail on the sculpts. I mean, sculpting, ripples on the surface of the water of the miniatures on the Calison's whole set, and the sheer level of detail that goes into these figures is I mean, the technology is just stunning, and I can resin print any base bits I want to with a relatively inexpensive setup. And I can just be sitting here and be like, right, here's what I want for this kit. I want a snarly tree with a face on it growing out of the side of a rock. Internet. Snarly tree, rock. There we go. And print. Half an hour later, 45 minutes later, bing, there it is. Cure it, done, on the figure. And I can go online and I can talk to people like yourself, or I can be like, oh, I want to choose a new faction for Underworlds. Which one should I paint first? This one or this one? Stick it up online. Boom, 12 answers on a survey within an hour. And I also think that if I could have back the range of miniatures from my childhood, or I could be in the time we are now, where anyone can do the hobby to a certain degree. I know you talked about it in the things that people were moaning about section recently. Anyone can do the hobby without judgment, but I do put a curse on that. Not universally, but it's better. It's in 2000s. If someone who wasn't, basically, if a girl wanted to get into the hobby, they'd be like, "Why do you want to get into that? That's a boy hobby." And I'm like, "What a terrible thing to say to someone,"
Yeah.
And because essentially we're playing with war dollies, and everyone should be able to play with war dollies. They're fun. But yeah, no, I think I would stick with the models and stuff we have today and the range of options, purely because of the fact that while I am able to go out and socialize and talk to people and interact with other hobbyists, I know that's not a universal thing. And I think anyone trying to do the hobby in the early 90s and through to the mid 2000s without the internet being quite so open and available. I mean,
Yeah.
hats off to them for managing to pull through it. Like, hurrying into a store, trying not to be bothered or harassed by anyone in there, and hurrying back home. Um, it's yeah, I saw those days, and I can't imagine anyone misses them.
No, it even feels weird going into a store now and try like it's nice to have a conversation with some of the staff, but knowing where we are now, and these poor guys are still living to the rule set of what it was in the 90s, early 2000s, of when someone comes in. Hi, how you doing? What are you here for today? Can I help you get anything? It's the standard three questions they throw at you every
I
time.
mean,
But,
having worked a lot in retail, I get there is a very genuine reason as to why that happens, because there are stores that you go into where, like, I have been into stores before where, if someone, and I think it's kind of to their detriment, really, the amount of stores that just don't have any interest in. I mean, the company never had any interest in the regulars, the old school gamers, and it was down to a store level and down to a managerial level even as to who they cared about and who they wanted to encourage.
yeah,
If my local store said they were having a Blood Bowl tournament over the Easter weekend, but you had to buy a Blood Bowl team in the store to enter, that was your cost of entry. Boom, 30 quid of my money right there and then. I'll come and play in that. That sounds fun. If they said we're having a display event in the cabinet, but you've got to convert up a figure, it's like a mini games day, mini golden demon thing, like a lot of stores used to have. They used to have the
yeah,
store level, and then the winners of the store level would be giving a 5 quid off a ticket to games day, or they'd be given a free coach seat or whatever to take their models up to win glory for the store. But that's not how you make money. You make money on, hi, are you new there? Can I help you? Can I sell you a core box? Can I recommend products? And I would not be a great person to work for Games Workshop anymore, because I like to leave people alone if they don't want help. Because some people
mhm,
just want to have a look around. They don't want to be bothered by
yeah,
an overly optimistic, kind of energetic, kind of ha kind of guy. And it's But when you're a specialist and you know what you're talking about, that comes through. You can say, if you do need any help, if you need any painting advice, or if you need any, model making advice, or if you want to know exactly what color fits this, or even if you come in for some glue or some paint for something that's totally unrelated. The amount of people who just come in, just after paint, I'm not after any of this. I don't want to be sold Space Marines.
yeah,
I'm painting something else. It's the whole, and I also think that while staff members need to tone it down a bit, I also think some customers need to forgive the fact that this person is being paid just above minimum wage, and they
yeah,
have to talk to you or they get in trouble.
yeah.
Because
No, it's a fair
if
point.
if head office catch you, if head office get to the back of the store without being greeted, yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's one of those things of, like, it is a necessary evil, but I would rather have someone enthusiastic who seems to, and the guys at my local store know me now. They know that if I pop in, it's a, hey, how you doing? Rather, how's that thing you're working on coming, rather than a,
yeah,
welcome to Games Workshop. I'm Captain Enthusiasm. I've had a lot of sugar today. But yeah, I mean, some people like that, but also I think that retail is changing because they appreciate that some people need less social interaction.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I think I'll be honest. I started off in retail many, many, many years ago, different companies, but you are right on a few things. Like when it's new customers, you're always going for the big ticket items. They're your sales. That's what you're like in the companies I worked for. That's what you were earning commission on. And yeah, when you do have that specialist knowledge, you're trained to give that specialist knowledge out. So it makes sense to be a little bit in somebody's face sometimes, give them the space they need, but also be like, oh, well, did you know you can just do this? Or have you tried that? Just the various other little bits and things. So it does make sense. And I think it's something that we do forget a lot of the time, being the vast majority of people we've spoken to have been in this for ages. I've been knocking around in it for a good number of years, and it's something we take for granted, I feel, a little bit.
I think the best customer I ever had because I worked in the Oxford Street store, which was a little bit of it wasn't a regular, it's like the Tottenham Court Road store now, but with personality and charm. Um, we were a crazy bunch of guys. Like it was a mad situation to be in, to drag ourselves all the way up into central London every day, and
Yeah.
pay £9 for a lunch just to sell Warhammer figures, and have no free time because we were either keeping an eye on the 50 customers that had just walked in, or the 20 European tourist teenagers on a trip with their rucksacks on their front, frog marched around the store as a sort of as
Yeah.
though it was a museum. And we would be, anytime a genuine customer would come in that wasn't a mystery shopper, or wasn't the son of a very well off tourist family who, they were like, I need this model, this model, this model, this model, £700 later, and you're ringing that up at the till, you'd occasionally run into a genuine, actually new customer, someone who either worked or lived in the area. And there was one guy, I remember he came in, and it would be one of those ones where you'd love to be able to train new staff members on that sale alone, but it would be impossible because it's not replicatable. It's not the traditional experience. He came in about 45 minutes before I was due to finish my shift, and I was an hour ahead of everybody else because I opened, and we had staggered shifts, so the next guy was going to close. And I stayed around 20-25 minutes into the end of my shift because we were having a good chat. He'd come in. He was obviously office worker kind of guy. He just having a bit of a look around, and I could have I said, anything I can help with at all. And he said, oh, I'm just having a bit of a look around. It's all I haven't really seen this sort of thing before. And I could have just done the disinterested staff member thing of being like, yeah, that's fine. You can have a look around, and bother me if you want something, or you come at me with a question if you've got one, and then let him wander around, and he would have just maybe disappeared off. But instead, I said, okay, well, I've got some time. We're not busy this evening. Why don't I
Yeah.
just, he was just someone who was interested in what we were doing, and I'd been doing some painting at the table, and I sort of popped my model down, and I sort of showed him a few things, and I was just like, so we do fantasy, 40k, Lord of the Rings, specialist games, but don't worry about those for now. I said, are you a fantasy battles kind of guy, or are you a futuristic kind of warfare kind of guy? And he was just like, oh, I like the idea of the futuristic kind of stuff. It looks quite fun. And we had a chat, and we sat and played a couple of rounds of an intro game in a very relaxed kind of, we can move this up here. The tactical, he really engaged with some of the tactical side of things. Like he was already starting to think about like, oh, if I put my guys up on this scenery, does it have an effect with their guns shooting down? And I was just like, well, no, but they can see more. So, because line of sight rules. And it has like sometimes if stuff can't climb up to you or whatever, you've got an advantage. And he was just like, okay, cool. And we got into tank facings, and that was really he was really interested in that because he was just like, oh, that makes sense because front of the tank and yada. And I was just like, yeah. Back in the days when that had a difference. And at the end of the conversation, I was just like, okay, you seem to be having a good time with that. So do you want to try the painting side of things? And he was just like, yeah, I'd kind of like to. And I got in base, I got in base coating a bit of a miniature, and we worked on a bit of Space Marine and everything for about 20 minutes. And there was no hard sell. There was no. And by the way, you can buy all of these items in these handy boxes. And at the end of the conversation, I said if this is the kind of thing you want to start, there are ways to do it. I said there's the way that we recommend towards kids with their parents, and then there's the way that we recommend towards, not to put too fine a point on it, adults with their own money and their own buying choices. I said you can go nuts, you can throw a tenner at it, and sit there at home going, well, that was fun, or you can throw 50 quid at it, or you can throw 100, or you can throw however much you want. And I said the more you initially invest, to be honest, does give you a better experience. I have all the paints at home, plus sprays, plus blues, plus brushes, plus 30 models to work on, and the books and the reference material. And I can sit there in my own little world, block out the world around me, and just focus on the hobby. If I was to sit down with a 15 quid starter set, I can probably do 20 minutes, but I've got to wait for that figure to dry. And I've got to base coat it by hand with no spray. And I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. And it's a compromised experience. And he went, okay, he said, I am interested. I do kind of want to go with it. He said, if you were starting, and you had, say, 100 quid to start with, what would you go for? And I'd say, well, to be honest, knowing what I know now, I would go away and I'd put aside another 50 quid, and then I'd come in and I'd go this, that. So it was like starter set. I think it was like the Battle from the Crag set, plus no, I know it's even before that. It was the excuse my language. It was the Dark Eldar and Space Marine set.
Yeah.
So what would that have been? Fifth? Fourth?
Yeah.
I want to say
Fourth, fifth. Yeah.
Yeah, fourth. And so anyway, I was just like, right. So that's your start set. That's your rule book. That's your models. That's your everything. I said Space Marine Battle Force. Boom. Terminators, a tank, Devastators, standard guys. I said Captain on top of that. Starter paint kit, spray can, couple of extra colours, Space Marine book. So, boom. That's 140 odd quid. And he was just like, and how many colours do I get in that? I was just like, this many. And he went, and this is where I weep, because I know how much currently the paints cost. He said, what's that? And I said, that is the mega paint set. That is £110, and that is every paint that we sell. And he went, so that's basically, I will not read any guide that I can't then paint if I have that. I was just like, yeah. And he was just like, right, give us one of those as well. At which point I'm starting to clock that this guy has one of those jobs where, he gets a lot of money, and he's not worried about that. So I said, okay. I said, are we doing this properly? He said, yeah. I said, okay. And I was like, boom, 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 boom. I was at the painting guide, the House Paint Citadel Miniatures guide, the complete brush set, not the Master's brush set, because that wasn't out at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, here's another tank, and here's the Dreadnought. That is like a 2,000 point army. That is everything, boom, that you need to get there.
Yeah.
And that's one of everything. You've got some flying troops, you've got some bike troops, you've got some jetpack troops, you've got some tanks, you've got some cool commanders. I think there was a librarian in there as well. And I was just like, that's a damn good army. You've also got all the colours you need. You've got a black spray in there, because coloured sprays were, that's luxury yet to come. And you've got the blues to it all. And I was just like, okay, you're off to the races. The add-on sales at the till that were unprompted by myself, and he was just like, is there anything else that's cool? Was the first two Imperial Armor books, because they had, I was just like, well, these books have pictures of all your tanks in them, like cut out, like cut scenes and side views and tank details and all that. And he was just like, yeah, chuck them in. And the Space Marine Collector's Guide. And I was just like, if you look in here and you find a hammer that you want for one of your figures, that's got the code on there, you can phone us up, and you can go onto the internet site, but don't come into the store, and we'll get that on order for you, or you can phone the trolls up directly, and you can get them to send it out. And that transaction was something like 450 quid by the end of it, which was nothing to the Oxford Street store, in a day. Still good, but it was not that's not a busy day. Whereas some stores, that would be like a Saturday almost at that time.
Yeah.
And I just remember there was nothing disingenuous about it. Like, I genuinely sent that guy away knowing, I was just like, I said to him at the end, I was just like, if I had that stuff this evening, and I was just getting into a new hobby, that would be me for the next month. And we booked him in for some painting sessions, which kept the boss happy because it means he's coming back. And then he bought a Dark Eldar army sometime later, and I still see him every time I go to Salute. I still see him every now and again. He's still wandering around. He's still in the hobby, and I'm like, that is a twin. No, what would it be now? That would be a 15-year addiction that was kicked off that day. And he still wears decent looking clothing, so he's not destitute. So I have not ruined his life. But I am not a drug dealer. But it was just nice to be like, and there's a couple of people out there that I'm like, they are hobbyists because of the help that I gave them at the time.
Yeah.
And they're as I am a hobbyist because of the help someone else gave me.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's madness to me when you start seeing people getting married who met through the hobby. I'm just like, good on you. That's taking it to another level. There are hobby kids out there. There are kids that are born because the hobby exists, and you're like, that freaks me out. That's just like, I'm like, well, that's if your mum or your dad had got into, I don't know, motorbikes instead, you might not. Wow, that's just
yeah. it's crazy when you do think about it, and like it's actually a really good example of how well things can go
Mm.
in stores. Like you know not every sale is going to go like that, but the fact that you did have the time, he had the time, and you just went for it. It sounds like the area manager's dream transaction when he's ringing up the tills and finds out what's going on the
Yeah,
day after. But
yeah,
was
a
that
guy who's quite loaded and with a lot of time on his hands and a good disposable income, who's enthusiastic
yeah.
about the hobby. That's the white whale. But in a way that is like he didn't just stick it all in a storage unit somewhere and not paint it or throw it away 5 minutes later. He actually
Yeah.
came back and enjoyed it and engaged with it and continued to, which is so key. And it's like just talking to people like human beings. Like
Yeah.
don't like you know like we are here or like you do with a lot of like the way that when you're talking to people about what annoys them, but trying to keep it positive at the same time. Like
Mhm.
it gives people, as you said, a room to just sort of, just to take a breather and just be like, that bugs me. And then people can go, yeah, that bugs me also. I go, good, I'm not taking crazy pills. That is annoying.
It did create a bit of discourse, actually. I got a lot of messages about that yesterday, and I was going to bring that up in a bit, believe it or not, and have a bit of a chat about you with that. But
Yeah, let's do it.
just going back to your street store, that was the one in the shopping centre, wasn't it?
Plaza Shopping Centre. Yes, indeed.
I've been in there a couple of times before it went. I always remember, like, as a 18 to 20 something, like just as I started on the edge of it, just filtering out the hobby for going out on the weekends and stuff. If I ever found myself uptown, I would wander up there and go in there. It was just remember it was on the first or second floor, wasn't it? And it was just like
First
on a
floor, right hand side
yeah,
as you went up. Yeah, yeah. Great location.
mm,
I'm sad that they took that place down because it was yeah, just just a really nice place.
yeah.
Just a
And
a great little store.
I remember at the time as well, not long after that, they got into Hamleys in the basement, which I thought was
That was
bizarre. Like,
that was a mistake. Yeah, they did
mm,
regret that. They were in not Harrods. I think they were in Harrods at one point as
yeah,
well. But there was a price hike on the Harrods stuff, so it was more expensive, and they had to stop that in the end because they had to enforce RRP because people would try and return stuff from Harrods to
mm,
to our store, and we were like, you paid 55 quid for this? This is 49 on our, this is like
yeah,
45 on our shelf, because of the premium that they used to put on because they could charge whatever they wanted.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, that was a good time, but it was, again, it was, I still think I like the store as it is now. It's a nice big store, and I like the fact you can get resin stuff there. I think that's a major
yeah,
advantage. We tried that, didn't work for us in Plaza, but that was back when no one really understood Forge World.
mhm.
But yeah, you say you got a lot of messages and bits and pieces regarding the
Yeah.
things that you're not a fan of type post.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously your post I thought was quite a good one because your one was the fact that people complaining when so many guys out there are getting some of the free stuff thrown to them from Games Workshop, and that was an interesting one because I see both sides of the coin a little bit in that I understand it can be frustrating for your bog standard hobbyist who wants to get a new release but can't because there's limited numbers, and then you go onto Instagram and 50 people are, well, I've got this, thank you very much for the preview copy and stuff. But I also understand that there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes on that, which potentially people don't understand. It's not so much that they're getting free copies. It's almost like a little, I think the way I described it to someone I know I was talking to was that you sort of informally work for them in a way. You're given this product as a pre-release, like a focus group
Hmm.
sort of thing. Like, you're dragged in off the street to see a movie. Tell us what you think about it. It's the same sort of thing. And
What's interesting for me is no one ever complained when every store in the country got theirs 2 weeks beforehand and were able to do it as a preview copy. And then every staff member was able to order it 2 weeks beforehand. But you just weren't allowed to show people because the idea was you were supposed to be getting it a bit early so you could get excited, so you could sell the previews and pre orders to people. Like I had the Dark Angels set that was out with the army box in my time in the company like 4 weeks before everyone else because of delays with scheduling. But by the time that the release had come out, I'd got bored. I'd done them. I painted mine. I'm sorted. I played a game with my mates with it on staff nights, and I was moving on to the next project. So it didn't really work. But I kind of get why some people are like, it's the scarcity and the not knowing, is this going to be available in the future? Am I going to miss out? Is this the only time to get this cheap?
Yeah.
I would have been a bit annoyed if I hadn't managed to get the the Solar Auxilia box set. But I
Hmm.
knew I could get one. I knew I can get them in the store. If you order them in the store, you can normally get one, or they'll make you one. But it is that thing of like, for having so many very, very slow releases that never really went anywhere,
Yeah.
now creating a bit of a sense of urgency is the only thing Games Workshop can do to keep people coming into the stores if they're not going to do regulars nights and have that cross
Hmm.
promotion of new events and new figures. You have to be in the store on the day or you're not going to get it. Guarantees you're in there once a month, new figures coming out. And it's new figures all the time. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
you've had your Imperial Guard army, see you in 3 years. It'll be like, oh, see you in 6 months when we do the new thingy box set, and then there's these figures or that rule book or that, supplement. So yeah, I get why people get frustrated, because frustration is not a sensible, controllable feeling. It's not like, oh, I've made a decision to be upset today about this thing that I've seen on the internet. You feel what you feel, but having said that, at the same time, it's then when you make the decision to be like, so I'm going to logically put together my thoughts and yell at someone who, what are they going to do? Like if Games Workshop offered me a free box set of Imperial Guard, I'm going to say no. I'm just going to go, no,
Yeah.
I will not take my free one. Thank you very much. I will pay my exorbitant price with the rest of you. Solidarity amongst the people, and then watch someone else get a free one, because they're giving it away. It's not like they go, okay, we'll hold that one back for the next customer then,
Yeah.
because I still buy it anyway. And it does annoy me when people get the box set and then do nothing with it, and then 6 months later you see it in their pile of shame, and
Yeah.
I'm like, you could have done. It's like the guy who paints each model in a different color scheme. He can have as many free box sets as he likes, in my opinion. Absolutely, you fill your boots. You have every box set that you want, and I think they are getting better at tailoring it to people who are like, they seem to be giving box sets away to people who will actually like that army or that set, or
Yeah.
haven't had a free one in a while. But there are some people where I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
you've got 7,000 followers and you're getting a free set, and you haven't really done much with it. You haven't even done an unboxing, or here's some cool stuff about the book, or here's some cool stuff about the figures, or it all feels a bit like, it's always every time I just want to send the gif of Tom Hanks at the end of Saving Private Ryan, when he's like, earn this, and then he dies, and I'm like, it's just like, yeah, that's a I just want to send them and be like, yeah, go on, off you go, paint it, you know.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head perfectly there, because you are right. There are people out there that want these things, will do with these things with the stuff they're getting, and there are others that will just have, here's my selfie with this brand new box, and away it goes.
Yeah,
And the other point that you raise is, it is something that I thought a lot about over the last 24 hours, is some of this a bit of jealousy, of people feeling hard done by,
yeah,
because they're putting in some of the work, they're getting the followers, but they're not getting what they perceive to be the recognition they deserve. As I'll be honest, like you said, if they were to call me up tomorrow and say, "Oh, our next release is this, do you want it?" Yeah, I'll
fine,
sell my soul
yeah,
for it. Believe
yeah.
me, I'm not going to say no.
No,
And who wouldn't?
I've been into it, and it's also one of those things of, I can understand when, like, I've been into the hobby since I was 8. I've been, around it. I mean, I did my time working for the company, so I got my free stuff, because you used to get a ton of free stuff that they used to throw away from the back of the store, or discounts or whatever. Like, I've had mine. I'm happy to. I
Yeah,
work for it, but I've had mine. And if they want to send me some more stuff, great. And if I was willing to spend, 4 hours a day building my Instagram followers, and begging for subscribers and doing giveaways and all this kind of stuff that you have to do these days to get attention, um, I would be and then I might be able to get some free stuff. But you have in a way earned it. I mean, there are some people out there who they gain a lot of followers not through necessarily their own, their painting or their skills, but because of who they are as a personality. And
Yeah.
again, that's another marketable thing. Games Workshop have just hooked onto that, and they've gone, here, have some free stuff because we think you're a good person to have in the hobby. They don't ever really send it to really toxic people. There are some they seem a bit gun shy about sending it to anyone who's got a bad rep, and I respect that because that's the way it should be. But I think yeah, jealousy is if everybody knew they were going to be able to get every box set and that there would be enough for everybody on release day, no one would ever really have a problem with it. Because as long as you know you're going to get yours, what's it? They say negative emotions is all based on the fear of loss or missing out. Everything comes
Yeah.
down to the sadness of like, I'm not going to get something, or I'm not going to be able to have that thing that I want, and that creates that negativity cycle. And Yeah, I did a few videos back in when Hobby Fest was running. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did a couple of drop-in sessions during that, which were basically sort of like I used to call them like sort of mental sort of take a breath moments, or like mental buffers
Yeah.
between all of the new content that was coming out. And I'd sort of talk to people about and it's something I want to try and get back off the ground again, but it was hard to do, and for a while I became a bit sort of dispirited when you do it. I'd book an hour session to sit in, and then like I get like no one would. There'd be like one person and then gone, and one person and gone, and
Yeah.
everything. And I'm not going to talk to myself about mental health. It'll make me look a bit crazy. But I used to talk to people about like how they got on in the hobby and how the hobby built like helped them with their various issues. And there
Mhm.
was a couple of sessions where we got into some really detailed stuff. We talked about, the way that people felt about their families, or the way that people felt about like, they'd had a friend or a brother who was not longer with us, but they were in the hobby, or they didn't see them anymore, or it reminded them of their childhood, or it was the only thing in a week that they looked forward to during a terrible job. And even
Yeah.
some people who, as I said, met their significant other and had kids through the hobby. I talked to one guy who was just like, he is alive because of the hobby, because of the friends he made, and the wife that he now has because of the confidence and everything that the hobby gave him. And I
Mm.
think that there's while we do talk a lot about mental health, I think we talk a lot negatively about mental health, about the pile of shame, or the deadline, or the
Yeah.
negativity of this, and I think there's also a time to talk about the good of the hobby, like what it's done to build people up, and I call it the cupboard of opportunities now, not the pile of shame. It is the opportunity to open something new and refresh things, rather than because no one looks at it and goes, "Wow, you should be ashamed of that," because you just go, "Yeah, it's a lot of stuff." But have you ever tried any other hobbies? It's a lot, tropical fish. No one ever looks at a load of fish tanks and goes, "Wow, that's a big pile of shame. It's a waste of money. You can't look at all these fish at the same time." But yeah, it's and you don't come down in the morning to find that because of a pump failure, all your miniatures have died. That's a
Yeah.
plus. But yeah, I think it's just as long as people are like it's people who whine about anything, and I go, well, what are you going to do about it? This person's getting free stuff. Okay, what's your plan to deal with this situation? Are you going to boycott the company? Are you going to make your own channel that has 9 million views a week, and then you'll get free stuff? Or are you
Yeah.
gonna, you're just gonna tell people that you're complaining, and then in a hope that will make you feel better somehow?
I think there's an inherent negativity about the internet in I want to say the last 10 years,
Mm.
because where you sort of touched on that, you know, coming from like third edition, fourth edition, fifth edition, the internet was in its infancy then, and seeing how it's grown along, they've both sort of grown together,
Mm.
but in the wrong way. They've taken the wrong direction, and it just seems a lot of, not just with Warhammer and whatever other hobbies are out there, but it just seems whoever shouts the loudest, has the loudest voice,
Yeah.
gets the attention, and usually it's not the right attention, it's not the right voice you want to be hearing. It's something that I do sort of say sometimes on here, that I think we should do more to lift each other up
Mm.
than promote ourselves. Is part of what we do on these lives, myself and Dunk when he's here with us. We want to hear other people. We don't want to see the same faces that you see all the other times on all the other channels. It's interesting to get out there and find more about other people and their journeys. And like you were touching on, the people that we've had on that have opened up to us about stuff, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
And I take it for granted sometimes that, for me, it's just having a chat with somebody, but we do get people who tune in regularly, and it's a nice little thing for them in their week too. And, it's such a small little thing, but makes such a large difference.
I always say there's a reason that I think there's a reason we as a species have things like award ceremonies and competitions. It's the approval of a third party is worth more than, like, if I go into work tomorrow and I say to my boss, you know what, I did a pretty amazing job yesterday. I was really on it. I was firing on all cylinders. I was going out and doing things that no one else would have done, and I really put in a hard day's work. They might go, oh, okay, good for you. It's good to know. Well done, I guess. Whereas if I say, you know what, the guy that helped me yesterday, that was really useful. I was able to do good work because that person was there supporting, and that's really beneficial. You get so much a better reaction out of building up someone else than you do self-aggrandizing. No one wants to hear what you have done. People want to hear what other people have done. This is why we don't read our own eulogy. It's other people's opinion matters more about you than your own opinion of yourself. And that's 100% true. Otherwise, there would be no depression on earth. You'd just be able to tell yourself you're fantastic and everything's all right and nothing's ever your fault. Tony Robbins would sell no books. But I think that in the hobby, there's a lot of, like, if you look at Golden Demon, I mean, the stuff about the printed AI background at the moment is the very locus of that. That is someone who has they've used technology to replace a step which would normally be a very involved art process. And whether or not that was what won them the competition, or whether it was the actual figure itself, or whether it was a combination of the two, and someone went, that's an inventive idea to use that. I don't think, I personally will never be as impressed if someone said to me that's an AI background on there. I go, oh, okay, great. Well, I don't think that's better anymore. I think I would prefer packaging or an art piece that had been done by a real human being. But having said that, I'm not going to condemn that person for winning within the rules as written. If next year it says no AI and they still win, then I have a problem, because now they know it's not okay. If they say, oh no, it's my work, because the person never said it was my work. They just didn't say it was an AI. If they'd been asked, they probably would have said, yeah, I generated that and printed it off. If not, they're a disgusting swine and they should get what coming to them. But it's I think it's easier to jump on the negativity, but it's very hard because you have to show your work when you're talking someone up. You have to prove what they've done. When you're talking someone down, it seems a lot easier. It seems to be like, oh, that guy lied about it, and people go, oh, that's shocking. It must be true. Why would someone make that up? Whereas if you say, oh, that guy worked really hard on that, people go, oh, really? How long did that? What's working really hard? What's your, where's the line there?
I think that's you again with that. It's within the rules. No one said you can't do it, and I think it has sort of soured the whole feel of it, because you look at the rest of that mini, and it's absolutely amazing. And just to point out one flaw, for want of a better way of saying it, he's technically done nothing wrong, and it's the whole thing when people kick off about printed stuff on year entry. There are rules that say you can use some printed bits as long as they're like designed by you for your own personal use. Basically, you haven't gone to a competitor and you're not ripping us off, which is fair game. So if people do that and they win, why is that a bad thing? Why, it's just everyone using.
It's just you're using a 3D sculpting tool rather than a green stuff tool.
Yeah.
And you're just replacing old school sculpting with a newer technology. And I think I think again, it's one of those things of, like, it is you've got to be humble to encourage someone and to build someone up, because what you're essentially saying is this person is, either better than me or has done good work which I haven't done, or you're kind of, you're putting yourself out there a bit when you compliment someone.
Mm.
Whereas when you're tearing someone down, it's easier to climb up someone than to lower yourself down someone. It's uh, yeah, it's I always found that it was, once you start to realize that actually, it costs you nothing to say nice things. It's almost impossible to say nice things about someone and be in a bad mood.
Mm.
People don't grudgingly give compliments. They sort of go, well, I guess, yeah, if I think about it, I accept
Yeah.
the point of view that that person did a good job or whatever. I mean, I looked at all the Golden Demon miniatures. It blew me away, as it always does. And I appreciate that, if I spent every hour of every day for a year painting something, I could do okay in the painting competition. But there are people out there who are, I'm never going to be the best, whatever I'm trying. But I'm better than I was yesterday, and I'm better than I was the week before. And my consistency is good, and the miniatures, I enjoy the painting process.
Mm.
And if I hate a miniature, well, that's a learning experience. I throw it and get a new one, and I just go, okay, well, it's an opportunity to to learn something about that technique, or that style, or what have you. But yeah, I think I mean, you said it a few times yourself on here that it's just about like having a bit of self-realization, just to be like, okay, yeah, that's we all make mistakes, but as long as you don't harp on about it and you don't bang on about it and focus on shining a light on other people's mistakes, I think most of us are pretty all right.
Mm. Definitely. I was looking back through our chat earlier, the messages that we've sent. Not many of them, but I think the first interaction we ever had, I think I put something online as a joke that I needed a commission painter. And you jumped in like, like a couple of days later, do you still need a commission painter for something? But actually, I can't remember what it was. I think I was talking about doing a fence or something silly like that.
You were talking about fences, yeah, I remember that at the time. Yeah,
that's coming again soon. So just to prepare everyone, the weather's getting nicer out there. Fence chat's coming back. But do you still commission paint then? Is that something that you still dabble with? Or?
I don't actively seek it out anymore, because it's not something that I have. I mean, I have time for it if I like the project. And to be honest, most of the time, if someone says to me, I want this project done, like if they cover my expenses and, throw me a pizza every now and again, I will, just because of the fact that, especially if it's not, more of something I'm already painting, I'll be more than happy to do that, because it's fun and I enjoy it. And it's if someone says to me, I want you to paint 100 Mantic orcs, I'm like, oh, God, okay, you're paying me for that. But if someone said to me like, oh, I had a friend who was not the greatest painter, but he liked the miniatures, and he was just like, okay, can you paint this set for me? Because I'd like to use them at a tournament. And I was just, yeah, of course. And every now and again they come back to me and they're like, oh, can we add a few figures because the meta's changed, or there's a new model or sculpt out? And I normally do them at mates rates, because I'm not, I'm not looking to do it as a career, and I think it would kill my interest in it if I tried to. Yeah, I take on the occasional commission, but I don't actively advertise it, so it's all on word of mouthy type stuff. If I did more active advertising, I'd probably get some more. But it's also, I find, if I'm trying to convince people to let me paint their stuff, if they come to me and go, I would like you to paint my stuff because I know that you can paint, I've seen your stuff, then I can be like, right, that's the standard you're going to get, rather than some people go, it's not, it's not perfect. And I go, yeah, but that's because you paid me £5 a miniature. I have to get 3 miniatures done in an hour to make it worth my time. Otherwise, I might as well go to work. It's, and thus you have 20 minutes per figure, including, especially if you want to build it as well and spray it and undercoat it and this and 3D printing parts and yada yada and basting. It's like, you've got to compromise somewhere. Yeah. I've got to shoot in a couple of minutes because I've got an arrangement to play Dead Rising 2 with which is Dead Island 2 with a friend of mine in about 5. So,
no problem.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant, because I was just about to ask. Like, we've been chatting for an hour,
No.
And most of our chats are usually hour to 90 minutes. We didn't obviously pre-talk how long you wanted to stay on for.
I figured
So
an hour is normally enough for people to have listened to me without wanting to hang themselves.
usually the same for me as well, so don't worry about that. So just a couple of quick fire ones then. Salute this year. Are you going?
Absolutely, I will be there.
Cool. Well, then I will see you there. I'll hunt you out, and it'd be nice to meet up face to face.
It won't be hard to find me. I'm 6'7", so just look slightly up, and I will be looming over some trade stand, probably buying a new airbrush or some 3D printing stuff I don't need.
That's fine. I'm 5 foot shit, so I will have to look up anyway. So don't worry about that. And just as well, I think if you do have to shoot off, I'd love to have you back on to have Dunk on with you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a few more things that we usually go over, but conscious of time, if you do need to shoot off, I'm not going to drag you on. But yeah, be lovely to have you back on.
Yeah, any old time. Drop me a line. I'm always happy to come in and give my thoughts on the issues of the day, and maybe as a sort of a post salute kind of thing, and just talk through what the day held or something similar. It'd be quite fun.
Yeah, that'd be blinding. So I will leave off with just one last thing for everyone that's been here tonight, for all the followers that will watch it later on our YouTube and whatever. Where can we find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Bones Pains Minis. You can find me on, I think I'm on Twitter under Bones Paints Mini because there's not enough characters in the Twitter username, but I don't really use Twitter. I use Instagram. And that's my main channel. I considered doing a YouTube channel, but I couldn't imagine anything more boring than listening to me prattle for 2 hours that was recorded in some format that people would want to go to over and over again. You can normally, find me at events like Salutes and the occasional, if Games Workshop ever start doing the big Games Day events and everything in the UK. And I'm always watching in the when they do the preview videos. Drop me a message, and I always say this to everyone. If someone needs to, vent about something, or if they need someone to reach out to and chat to about mental health in the hobby, always happy to jump on people's channels and give the wisdom of my years. Sometimes it's just happy to listen.
Cool. No, buddy. Again, thank you for jumping on short notice. I really appreciate you reaching out and agreeing to do that. We will have you back.
Thanks for having me on.
I will let you go for now. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. And folks who are watching, I can't remember who we got on next week because I'm an idiot. But we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Cheers, buddy.